Good evening. My name is Rivkah Goldstein. First, I just want to start by saying thank you for trusting me, for opening your minds tonight to my thoughts and ideas, and I hope that you walk away with inspiration, feeling more confident as a mother in Baruch Hashem. So I am Baruch Hashem, the mother of 7 children, ranging between the ages of 13 and 1-year-old Baruch Hashem. And if I would have given you a glimpse into my mind, my journal, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you would have seen the image of a mother who was deeply, deeply, deeply struggling. I ended every day in great despair. I ended every day wondering if I was ever going to figure this thing out, this thing called parenting, mothering, raising the kids. And I was truly, truly so confused and so depressed. Not depressed, but I mean like so despairing. And I tried, like Mrs. Greenberg, like you're saying, like going back and forth and trying this and trying that and this technique and that technique. And some things would last for a little bit and some things would last for a little longer, but I always just kept on coming back to the place of struggle. And that changed gradually once I found the model that I like to call gentle parenting. There are so many different ways you can call this. Some people call it respectful parenting, conscious parenting. The word gentle parenting speaks to me the most. So as I started to learn more about this, something really profound started to happen. I started to, first and foremost about myself, to find this tremendous peace within myself. This great peace I found in being nurturing. And I'm going to explain that soon, what I mean when I say nurturing. And what's more is that I never even knew that I had it in me. If you would have told me at that time that I was going to be able to be who I am now, I would not have believed you at all. I would have believed you more if you would have told me that I'm going to land on the moon. I did not know it was possible for me to become someone who was a gentle parent the way I experience it now. So that's an important piece here, because I believe that it's something that we can all reach. And I shouldn't say reach because it's an ongoing journey. It's something we can all start to experience on a regular basis. And so this is the gold mine that I uncovered, the gold mine of nurturing, the joy of nurturing our children. And the truth is that as I thought about it more, we're really built to nurture. And I'll explain that more in a moment. And so we want to ask ourselves, if we're built to nurture, why is it so hard? It's so hard, right? So before we go into the why, I want to give a short description of what I mean when I say nurture. When I think about it, when I think about the word nurture, I imagine someone tending to a plant, very sensitive, caring, noticing every detail about the plant's growth, and applying that to parenting as a humans. The way that nurture looks in my life and the way I see it for all women is that part of it is that every fiber of your being, of my being, our being, is at peace. There's a deep, profound sense of peace on a physical level. Not just in my mind, on a physical level, there's a deep, profound sense of peace. And a deep, profound sense of joy. Again, looking at myself 5, 10 years ago, I did not consider myself a happy person. And as I've been coming more into this place of nurturing, I've started to experience what it means to feel joy. And I want to differentiate between joy and happiness. I'm not necessarily talking about the external layer of happiness. I'm talking about joy that's felt deep within, okay? And what else does nurture look like? So I was describing what nurture looks like within me. The way it looks more externally is that the mother is exuding warmth, okay? And connection, bonding. It's like you don't even have to say it, you see it. You could see it with your eyes. And even when the mother has to set limits, which is a critical, integral part of nurturing. It's not, a lot of people have a misconception that gentle parenting equals permissive parenting, and it's the farthest thing from the truth. That's something else. Permissive parenting is something else. Within the realm of gentle parenting, limits are such an integral thing, and there's a myth that limits have to be harsh or cold. Well, what about boundaries? Well, what are you going to do with your child? Absolutely, we can address everything, but we can do it from a place of sensitivity, warmth, connection, presence, and most of all, compassion. Nurturing also looks like being very tuned in, being able to really listen, really see our child, really look into their eyes and see the person who they are, getting on their level, figuratively, literally getting on their level, learning more and more how to get down on the floor, to be able to look at my 3-year-old in his eyes. And so that's another part of this picture called nurture, as well as holding space. Holding space would mean giving honor to the feelings that our children have, their wishes, their moods, their struggles, really recognizing them and acknowledging them and feeling compassion, because our children go through countless struggles, and they need us to have compassion for that, to just care. Before we even address the issue at hand, just to care. What else? One other piece about nurture is that there's a deep sense of trust that the mother has in the process, a trust in the process of parenting, trust in the process that things are going to work out, a deep sense of trust in her child that the child is good, deeply, deeply good. They never want to do bad. They never want to hurt their sibling. In fact, just today I had an incident where 2 children got very angry at each other, and one of them actually hurt the other, like, pretty bad. And this is a struggle for me till this day, and I'm working, this is a active project of mine that I'm working on right now, is the struggle that comes up for me when the kids hurt each other. Baruch Hashem, I was able to remember in this moment, and I was standing where I was able to at least prevent any more, anything more from happening. But I was able to stay in a place of remembering that the child who hurt the other child truly, truly did not want to do that. Even though the way it looks on the outside, it looks like she was acting malicious, or he was trying to hurt his sibling, or he was angry, or he was taking revenge. And I was able to remember, no, this child absolutely did not want to do this. They feel such great remorse within themselves. And if I only just trust in that, trust in them, they'll work through it. We're going to get to it. We don't have to solve it right now. So trust in the process, trust in the child, and trust in the power of the parent-child bond. Nothing is as powerful as the bond that we hold with our children. I took the parenting course from Rabbi Shais Taub. I'm sure many of you heard about it. I took it when he was giving it as a pilot run to get it started. And that was one of his most powerful messages, is that for sure sometimes we need to get external help for our children, but never at the expense of what a parent could accomplish. A parent could accomplish what 100,000 therapists cannot do for our children. So trusting in the power of my relationship with my child, that's all part of this picture of nurturing. So now, we know, of course, from so many different sources, we've heard that the mothers that Keres Habayis think about it as the foundation of the home, and on a physical level, obviously, if the foundation is insecure, that is very concerning. And usually, I think we see that as the mother, that Keres Habayis, that we want to know that the mother's secure, and her Torah and her mitzvahs, they're strong, and her emunah and bitachon, and that's absolutely important. And I want to shine a light on something else, that we also want to feel that solid strength in our role as a mother on an emotional level and a mental level as well. So that also contributes to the strength of the home. Of course, this can be frightening when we think about how much is dependent on us, but I always want to reinforce that there's never a need for guilt. Obviously, we hear that a lot, but healing and growth is always possible. It is never too late. And again, speaking from experience, as someone who never thought that I could have the relationship that I have with my children now, be the person that I could be, so it's possible to change and to grow. And that's a big part of the beauty of gentle parenting, is that you infuse so much forgiveness in the home, and healing it's within your reach. So on the handout that you have, feel free to take notes, of course. I wrote, nurture, and you can take it home with you and think about it if you want. What feelings come up for me next to this discussion. On the right side, is it possible to get a drink of water, please? Sorry. On the right side, we have a letter from the Rebbe, which I am not going to read through, but you're welcome to read it on your own, take it home with you. And in this letter, there was a woman who was writing to the Rebbe that something was bothering her, some loss of some sort. It's not clear to me what that was. And clearly it was impairing her ability to mother properly. And it was bothering her. And a few of the points that the Rebbe brings out in this letter is that so much is dependent on the mother, and so therefore, thank you. Therefore, that anything that is getting in the way of the mother being the best mother she could be, anything, we need to address it. It must be taken care of. It must be moved out of the way so that she can continue to mother the best she possibly can. And then the Rebbe continues to write in this letter that how critical it is that in order for a mother to be able to raise her children in the proper way, and this is in bold, if you'll see in the middle, close to the bottom of the letter, she must have menuchas hanefesh ve'archavas hadas. So she needs to have both this peace within her nefesh and this open mind, or I don't know how else to describe that, but like an opening of the mind. And the way that I understand this is that, from my own experience, that the more we are able to return to the true nurturing selves that we were built to be, the more we are able to be in a place where we have the menuchas hanefesh, we have the archavas hadas, because we're being who we were meant to be. There is nothing getting in the way of that. And I wanted to add one other thought before I continue here. I think I lost it here. Just a second. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So the way I understand it is that menuchas hanefesh might be something like a deep sense of peace, menucha, and archavas hadas, an open mind, and access to tons of deep inner wisdom. Sometimes people ask me questions about parenting, and I often respond saying that the truth of the matter is that what I would prefer to help you do is to peel away at the layers that have, grown on top of us, so that when you're in touch with your true self, I am convinced that you have tremendous wisdom within yourself about what your family needs and what your child needs. And that's the way I understand archavas hadas. We have so much wisdom within ourselves when we're able to be in touch with it, okay? So consider this, we're built to nurture. Obviously we know this, a mother's body physically nurtures a child for 9 months. It brings something that was only potential into true actuality, physicality, a live baby, with Hashem's help, of course. And it doesn't make sense that Hashem only gave us the capacity to nurture for 9 months and then that's it, after that we're done. No, for sure, Hashem gave us the capacity to nurture our children for their entire lives. Obviously that looks different as they get older, but the nurture is there forever. It's a part of who we are. And so we have the capacity and the wisdom to do this beyond the womb. So why do so many of us struggle? Okay, so that's the question. That's the big question. And maybe I'm only speaking for myself, but I understand that parenting is one of the top struggles that most of us, deal with in our lives. So, on the other side of the handout, again, feel free to take notes if this works for you. So, I have pinpointed 4 categories of struggle that may potentially apply to different people at different times. And the reason it's important to discuss these is because, again, part of our job as mothers is to figure out what's getting in my way, what's getting in the way of my being able to be a nurturing mother. So first and foremost, for sure, for so many of us, and there are different phases in our lives where different things will come up, but much of the struggle comes from practical things. We're exhausted, we're overwhelmed, we're stressed out. We may be taking on too many responsibilities. Maybe it's a time to cut back. Our lifestyle is rushed. Our own needs are not getting met. We don't even have time to take care of ourselves. Maybe we even lost touch with what we need, and we ask ourselves, someone might ask you, what do you need? And you don't even know, because that's how worn out we are. And perhaps there's struggles in relationships, other relationships, besides for our children. Maybe there are struggles with the spouse, with other family members, extended family members, co-workers. All of these things are practical issues that could come up that when a mother is going to be interacting with her children, she just doesn't have it in her. She doesn't have the capacity to get in touch with that nurturing place. And so it's a good place to start is just to start assessing, what's going on in my life. But we'll get to how to address these 4 after I just name them. So then another reason that for sure comes up for so many of us is skills. We just don't know what to do. My child is tantruming, my child is chutzpahdik, my child is not saying the truth, fighting, and we just don't know what to do. Considering also all the conflicting information we hear from so many different sources, and we're just so confused. And I know for sure that was a huge struggle for me. I would sit down at the end of the day and I would be journaling and I would be like, I just don't know what to do. I'm so helpless. So that's another significant challenge that could get in the way of us being able to be that nurturing mother. And then this is the one that I really want to focus on, okay? There are beliefs and ideologies that we hear all around us about parenting. We're surrounded by so much input. Our close family members, social media, friends, community, and it's very confusing. So we hear so many different things. You should do this, you should do that. You could hear the 2 opposites within 5 minutes of each other. And what often happens is that some of that input that we're hearing about chinuch from other people takes us away from our innate ability to nurture and lavish our children with love. So for example, we may hear ideas such as a child is misbehaving, ignore them, or else you're going to reward the behavior. So, and I'll explain in a minute how that takes us away from our ability to nurture our child. Or, and I just want to mention again, to stress this, nurture does not mean that there are no limits or boundaries, like I said before. And in fact, sometimes setting a limit can be an even more bonding experience than when we're just having fun at the park. And I'll tell you more about that soon as well. So, we're hearing lots of different feedback from people, and that could be very confusing. And then another area, the 4th area that I will pinpoint here as a potential item that could impair a woman's ability to nurture is unresolved pain. And the way a child attaches to their caregivers, to their parents, has a tremendous impact on how their brain develops and how they're able to function as adults and how they're able to bond in future relationships. if someone went through significant pain as a child, and perhaps as a child they didn't recognize it as pain because that was their only reality. So someone went through significant pain as a child, or perhaps subtle pain that built up over time, it can impair their ability to be nurturing. Not forever. This can be learned, this can be healed, but it's important to recognize that. And that could be a reason why a mother may be having a hard time giving nurture and showering love to their child. I'll just give a practical example that I'm sure you're familiar. That for some people to say the words, "I love you," is hard. And that could come from having had that struggle in their own childhood, having had experiences in their childhood that just impair their ability to give that to their child. And remember, healing is possible. It's available to us. Of course, we know that Hashem doesn't give us more than we can handle. So if He gave us this role of raising our children, for sure, we can do it. And so, particularly this one about unresolved pain, I want to take a moment to extend compassion and grace for anyone who feels that this speaks to their reality. And it's very likely that even though you feel like you're not able to give that love to your child at this time, you likely have reservoirs of profound warmth waiting to burst forth, and take the time that you need for yourself. You're not alone. Reach out when it feels safe to do so. And the changes are profound, and your children will feel it, so it's possible. So we want to go back to these 4 areas, and it's not so helpful if I just give you all these areas of struggle and I don't tell you what can we do about it. So, and of course that was the Rebbe's telling the woman, take care of these things. So what can we do? So, supposing that it's a practical issue that's getting in the way of your being able to be that gentle, compassionate, nurturing mother. So obviously, start to observe what's going on in my life. Just observe what's happening. How much am I tied down to? How many commitments have I made? Where am I not getting enough time to take a shower? Or eat a meal that's nurturing and makes me feel like a person, like a human. And start to assess where could we make changes if we need to get support in the form of babysitters or mother's helpers or friends or relatives or therapy or whatever help it is that we need to start to assess where can I start to help myself so that I can really be here for my children. And if there's healing in other relationships in our lives that needs to happen because it's getting in the way of our children are our top priority. And when I say that, I don't mean to the exclusion of the marriage. I know that sometimes gets confusing for people, but it's possible for us to nurture our marriage and our children at the same time. So one does not have to come at the expense of the other. Okay, so that's what we could start to do to address the practical issues that may be coming up for us. I'm going to come back to the skills in a minute, but first, and this is, if you walk away with this guidance from this talk, I will be grateful. So we're going to talk about the beliefs. How do we sift through all this guidance we're hearing all over the place, the books and the Instagram posts and WhatsApp statuses and this and that? How do we sift through it and find what are the beliefs that I want to hold on to that will help me nurture my child, that will help me be loving and present and joyful most of the time? I don't mean this all the time. Please don't think that I'm perfect. I'm never going to be perfect. I'm not meant to be perfect. So how do we sift through it? How do we get to be discerning of all of this guidance? And so this is the key. When you hear parenting guidance, you want to ask yourself, how does this make me feel towards my child and my role as a mother? Okay? When I hear this guidance, do I feel warmer towards my child? Do I feel more connected to my child? Do I feel closer Does it awaken compassion in me for my child? Does it awaken a feeling of maybe even sadness for my child? That's not a bad thing. Or does it make me feel distant, angry, resentful, annoyed, ashamed, perhaps? So I invite you to close your eyes for a moment if you're comfortable with that. And I'm going to say different quotes that you might hear about parenting and tune into what feelings come up inside of you, inside of your, even on a physical level, like do you feel any tensing inside of yourself? Do you feel a loosening? Do you feel a softness or tightness? You'll know. So, let's say, we'll start with this one. When you hear the phrase, my child is giving me a hard time, what feelings come up for you? You don't have to answer. Just think about it within yourself. And now consider this. My child is having a hard time. In my own body, in my own mind, when I hear those two, it brings up very different feelings inside of me towards my child and towards myself as a mother. Another phrase, and again, if you're comfortable, close your eyes and tune into what you're feeling. My child doesn't stop nagging me. Okay? That's one phrase. Versus, my child really needs something and doesn't yet have the capacity to wait patiently for it or ask for it in a different way. Another phrase, kids nowadays, they're so spoiled. Versus, my child is young and has not developed the capacity to process disappointment in a more mature manner yet. Okay? Another phrase I think that many of us hear about parenting and kind of put forth as a chinuch ideal. Kids need to be put in their place. Okay? Versus, kids are growing and evolving and are meant to make mistakes, just like we all do, and I'm here to support them to grow through their childhood in a healthy way. Another thing we might hear is kids have to learn, fill in the blank. Kids have to learn derech eretz, or kids have to learn to clean up after themselves. When I listen to that, I feel resentment towards my child, or I feel anger and frustrated. Why don't they learn after all, right? If they have to learn, why don't they already? Why do they still not clean up when I ask them to? Versus, I need to help my child master a new skill by believing in them, or I need to help my child by holding a boundary with them. So when I look at it that way, it's not kids have to learn, it's I'm here to help them. It's my responsibility. And it awakens within me more compassion for my child. Or saying something like, oh, when will the kids be back in school already? I can't handle having them around. And I understand that it's hard. I'm not saying it's not hard. However, what if we were to phrase it like this? I'm having a hard time these days. I might need some time for myself. I wonder how I can arrange that. Or something along those lines. Because again, as we're thinking about when will my kids be back to school, I can't handle, it's not awakening warm feelings within me for my child. It's taking me away from my natural nurturing place. Or my child is so stubborn. Versus, my child has such great skill at persistence, and this can be so powerful in life, and I wonder how I can help myself manage my feelings about the persistence better right now when it's hard for me. Or, these kids need a good punishment once and for all. Versus, my child knows deep down what's right and wrong. I believe that. He must be having a real struggle at the time to have behaved in a way that went against what he knows to be right. Just like in this incident with my children today, that I was able to remember that this child did not want to hurt their sibling. And I was able to stand there with my arm around this child, both of them at the same time. Whereas in the past I would be like, no, you give the attention to the child who got hurt. But I need to recognize that the child who did the hurting is also hurting. And they need me just as much, even though they look so aggressive and angry. So being able to look at it that way, I was able to stay in a nurturing place, and even my child was able to feel it. Afterwards, I said to this child, I said, you know that I wasn't angry, right? And the child said, yeah, I know. And that was amazing. That was so important. On a tangent, I want to add that if I was angry, then this child would have to be so consumed in their mind with protecting themselves from my anger, even emotionally, even if I wasn't going to punish them or anything. But a child so concerned that their parents shouldn't be angry at them, it's a very devastating feeling. So she wouldn't even be able to get in touch with the part of herself that could feel remorse for what she did. So by me being able to stay in a place of calm and trust, she was able to, perhaps in her mind, feel remorse. Was the child yet able to express it? Maybe not this time. Were they able to say, I'm sorry? Maybe not this time, but it will come. It will come over time. And one more example, saying, oh, my child never listens to me. And I mean, I know that that's true. They don't listen to us, and sometimes it feels like they never listen to us. Or we could say to ourselves, it seems, like my child never pays attention to me when I'm talking. That's kind of what I meant when I wrote it. My child never pays attention. Like, you're calling them for supper and like they selective hearing. Instead, it seems my child has been finding my voice and words too unsafe or overwhelming. And so he has learned to tune me out. That doesn't mean that's always the case. It could be they're just involved in their toys. But sometimes, if we're getting the sense that they're just tuning us out, it could be a reason why. And they're just trying to protect themselves. So, in general, speaking about the beliefs that could get in the way of being nurturing, any guidance that brings up feelings of warmth, closeness, compassion, is bringing us closer to being a nurturing mother. Guidance that brings up within us feelings of distance, resentment, anger, frustration, is probably taking us away from being a nurturing mother. And what happens is, deep inside of us, there's an inner conflict going on because we were built to nurture. It's our DNA, our body was physically built to nurture. And when you put something in there that is in direct conflict with nurturing, then you have something inside that you may not even be tuned into, but deep inside there's an inner conflict on a very deep level that is a painful feeling, and that's part of the reason why we get angry. Because deep inside of us, we know we don't want to be doing this, and it's going against everything that we were built to do. So when we're able to remove that inner conflict, we can approach our children from a place of peace, stability, connection, joy. And I didn't put the quotes here in the paper, but there are many sources, and I had a conversation with my father-in-law about this, Rabbi Levi Goldstein, and checking in with him about this particular item that I heard from him, and he shared with me several sources, but I didn't put them in the paper, that the Rebbe said that in the past years, chinuch consisted of chesed and gevura, and now it needs to be only chesed. And again, this doesn't mean that we aren't setting limits, but we can set a limit in such a way that in the moment our child might be upset that we're setting a limit, but we can set it in such a way that deep inside of them, they feel that deep sense of care and love. So it's still chesed. We can still set limits with chesed. And my father-in-law pointed out, he said, you know what's the greatest proof that we should be raising our children only with chesed now? He said, I'm taking the liberty of quoting him, he said, the youth of our generation. They are showing us that this is the time for pure chesed and tons of love and nurturing and opening ourselves up to just let it spill forth for our children. And not only that, in fact, there's a sikha from Chav Cheshvan, so yesterday was Chav Cheshvan, Lamed Vav and Lamed Zayin, where the Rebbe brought this story about where the Rebbe speaks about how a new tziner for chinuch has been opened up because the Frierdiker Rebbe shared the story about the Rebbe Rashab, who was crying that he wanted to see Hashem, correct? And the Rebbe shared that it's time for a new level of chinuch, and specifically in this sikha I was talking about not needing to give children rewards and prizes because they innately are able to want to serve Hashem without external motivations. So it's just helpful to recognize that the idea that a new tziner of chinuch is necessary for this generation is found in the Rebbe's sikhas. So now that we know how we can start to look at the practical aspects of our lives and the beliefs, the skills, so now we can start to learn and get guidance because we know how to be discerning. When we're getting guidance and we, read a book or consult with someone or having a casual conversation with a friend and we're giving each other guidance, and we can check in with ourselves and say, okay, I just got some parenting guidance. Let me see, how does this feel inside of myself? When I just get still with myself, how does it feel? Does it bring up feelings of closeness for my child, care, compassion? Then those are skills that I will start to try to work with. And if it doesn't, then I'll let that go. I'll let that guidance go. And so I'll give a practical application, although I think the most practical part of this talk that I would like you to take away was that piece, that to check in with the guidance that you're hearing all around you and choose that which brings you closer to what you were built for. But here's a practical application. Let's say your child is having a tantrum. Anybody familiar with what that is? So we're conflicted because let's say they wanted to, you gave them the wrong bowl, the blue bowl instead of the red bowl. And in this case, okay, if they are upset, you can switch it if you're able to. But what if you weren't able to? What if it's a situation that you are not able to just give it to them because maybe there's no time for a tantrum right now? It depends what it is. So giving in may feel conflicting inside of yourself because you know that this is a limit that needs to be set and your child needs it. So you know that you can't give in, and if you were to give in, that would be taking you away from your nurturing self because you are not giving your child what they need in that moment. They need the limit, whatever it is. And so that's one thing. So you can't give in. So what do many of us do, and I did this for a long time, is I'm going to ignore the child until he stops crying, and then, because if I pay attention, I'm going to be rewarding bad behavior. And so that's kind of the other end of the spectrum. Either you give in or you ignore the tantrum. However, since a mother is built to nurture and to feel compassion for when her child is in pain, no matter what that pain is about, if it's a red bowl or a blue bowl, to be able to feel care that the child is disappointed about something like right now. This is huge for them. This is their whole world right now. So if I'm to move into the place of ignoring my child, that's taking me away from nurturing. And it's bringing up feelings of distance towards my child and great inner conflict. Because if I'm built to give and nurture and to care and to feel concerned when my child is crying, so ignoring them is going to take me away from nurturing. So what do? So here is where we have the practical application of gentle parenting. Any tantrum, it doesn't matter what it's about, and it doesn't mean we can do this all the time. If every time we can do it is valuable, that's all. And if there are times we can't, there are ways we can still be present without necessarily doing what I'm going to describe. So we sit with the child and be present with them, see their pain, carry it with them, hold them if possible. They might be kicking and screaming. If they're kicking and they're trying to hurt you, I gently hold the child's hands if they're trying to hit me, or I gently hold their feet. If they're trying to kick me, I hold it as gently as I'm able to, and sometimes that has to be pretty firm. And I just keep saying, I'm just gonna hold your feet so no one gets hurt. I'm here, I'm staying with you. I see how hard this is for you. I'm not gonna leave you alone, okay? And what's happening in that moment is that I am at peace with myself, because number one, I haven't given in to the limit that needed to be set. And number two, I'm not abandoning my child. It goes against every fiber of a mother's body and psyche and mind and neshama to abandon her child, even in a figurative sense, even for a few moments. So therefore, in this way, I know that I'm holding the limit that needs to be held, and I'm not abandoning them, and I'm with them, and they're not alone. And that brings us back in touch with our maternal instincts. Now, of course, like I said, it doesn't mean I'm always able to, and if I'm not able to, I'm middle of making supper, and there is no time to sit down next to them and hold them and be with them, so I might be able to just say, I see, as I'm cooking, I see how sad you are. I'm right here. I know that you're so disappointed. I'm thinking about you. There was one evening where a child was upset about something, and I was not able to sit with them, so I leaned in and I said, you know, this was a younger child. Obviously, you adapt the language to the age. I said, you know, right here is mommy's heart. And of course, like, my tone changed a little bit, so like they got curious. I said, I can't be with you right now, but I want you to know that right now I am putting you in a special place in my heart, because I know that you're so sad right now. I'm gonna go back and finish making supper, but you're right here inside my heart. That doesn't mean I always have time to say that either, but every time we're able to do those connecting things, that has so much value. So just a little, that is a practical application of how when we're in a nurturing place, we are at peace, we know we're giving our children what they need, we know we are not leaving them, we are not abandoning them, and in big part, that comes from doing the best we can to clear away the practical impediments to mothering, to nurturing, doing away with the beliefs that take me away from feeling nurturing towards my child, learning the skills that help me feel closer to my child, and again, for those of us that it's applicable, working through personal pain from our past that may be making it hard to sit with a child. For example, it may be hard to hear a child cry, and if we hadn't had that opportunity to be heard when we were crying or to be held, it can be so hard. Or whining. Recently, that's been very difficult for me. Whining is hard, and that's something I'm trying to work through, figure out what's going on. Why is it so hard? Anyways, I just want to finish off with a little thought. I really, really feel that this shift in parenting is such a powerful sign of the Geula, because we know that the Rebbe teaches that the Geula, we want it to come right away, because we say we want Geula Mitzvah Shlema like right now, but until it is here in absoluteness, we know that we're inching towards Geula, and we know that there are shifts in the world at large that are indications that Mashiach is coming. For example, the tremendous advancements in technology and medicine, and the fact that even world leaders are talking about peace, although it's not, they have a long way to go, but the fact that they're even talking about it, these are things that are showing us that we're getting closer to Geula. And what's fascinating is that I recently heard a podcast between Rabbi Shais Taub and Dr. Jacob Ham. And he's a trauma therapist in Manhattan. And Rabbi Taub was interviewing this doctor, and they were talking about trauma, which is, the buzzword nowadays. And why was it important to talk about it? Because the doctor was describing how trauma affects the body on a physical level. And over the years, that carries through generations. And so Rabbi Taub says, so like, well, the Jews, like, we had like a lot of trauma. And he's like, yeah. So what they were talking about was how on a physical level, we in this room are carrying the gullus of thousands of years in our body. And what's fascinating is that we are at a time that there is so much healing, access, knowledge, and even enough safety to explore the idea of healing so much pain. When I say safety, I mean never in history, pretty much, was there an opportunity where people would have even had enough safety to start thinking about their mental health. They were always worried about the next pogrom, or the Nazis, or the Spanish Inquisition, or whatever it was. There was never a moment to think beyond your physical safety. And now we are at a time where there is pretty much a relative amount of safety that we're able to start to think about healing the pain that our bodies are carrying from thousands of years of gullus. And our children are the greatest push to do that, because they are the ones that are going to force us to peel away at all the layers that may have gotten in the way. For example, so imagine this. So I was saying that if someone was not able to was not able to be heard crying as a baby, they're going to have a hard time hearing their child cry. They're going to have a hard time being present with their child, being that nurturing mother. So imagine this. There's a boy whose family is running away from the Nazis, and they're hiding in barns, and then the 2-year-old starts to cry. For sure, the family is going to do whatever they have to get the baby quiet. They would not hear those cries. It was going to threaten their lives. So that child may have grown into an adult who was not able to hear his child cries. And then that child grew into an adult who was not able to hear his child's cries. But now, we are at a point in time where our children are pushing us like no one else, that we need to be able to peel away at all of that and get to the deepest part of ourselves, where we're able to hear our child's cries, where we're able to just hold them and be there for them. And it's a huge trust and a responsibility. And ultimately, it's, consider that another way that we bring Gula is by acting as if, right? We want to act Guladik. Well, surely when Mashiach comes, we were not going to have any of that negativity in the way of nurturing our children. And we're able to do that now. We're able to begin to do that now. We're able to begin to be there for our children in a way that mimics the way we're going to be able to be there for them when Mashiach comes. And surely not only is it helpful for us now, but it's bringing the Geula closer as well. And so I will just finish off with a short poem that I wrote, if I could find it. I did not print it. Here it is. Okay. Let's see if it comes up here. Hold on a second. Maybe. I don't know if I'm going to be able to because I did not print it. Let me see. Do I have? No, I don't know where it is. Goldie, are you here? Is Goldie here? You have it? Okay, that would be amazing. Thank you. Okay. So I titled it, like it's at the bottom of the pages, I titled it Motherhood Reclaimed. Okay, we're reclaiming our motherhood now. And so here we go. Know this. In your essence, you have infinite wisdom, warmth, and nurture for your child. Know that you have answers within that will allow you to parent in a way that truly feels aligned and compassionate. Know that you were built to nurture, give, listen, love, even when setting limits. Know that it is possible and within you to be everything you really want to be as a parent. Give yourself permission to wonder and question. Give yourself permission to let go of old beliefs that do not serve you in cultivating a loving home. Give yourself permission to parent in a way that you know in your deepest self is truly best for your family. Give yourself permission to evolve and grow into the parent you really want to be. Greatness awaits you. And if any of this was inspiring for you and you would like more frequent ideas and thoughts on this, so at the bottom of the handout is my number and my Instagram handle, and whichever one works for you. My number is, I send out a WhatsApp broadcast with thoughts a few times a week approximately, or I put it on my status, and if these are things that are interesting to you, just if you want the WhatsApp version, then send me a message, because I'll need to add your contact, and then you can see those there, or if Instagram is your thing, so there's my Instagram handle. And just wishing all of us a continued return together to our true selves. Hatzlacha. Sorry, just grab one more.